part of the tapestry of the history of this club, has won 5 FA Cups, 4 League Cups, 10 Charity Community Shields, 1 European Cup Winners' Cup, 1 European Super Cup, 2 Champions League titles, Intercontinental Cup, 1 FIFA Club World Cup, and 13 Premier League titles. The impossible dream made possible.
In 2013, an era ended. Sir Alex Ferguson, the man who built dynasties, silenced rivals, and turned Manchester United into a global powerhouse, stepped down after 26 years of dominance. What followed was not just a managerial transition, it was a collapse of identity, ambition, and power. From boardroom chaos to tactical confusion, Manchester United's post-SAF journey has been a masterclass in how not to run a football giant. This is the story of decline. This is the fall of United after Sir Alex Ferguson. Before Manchester United became synonymous with Sir Alex Ferguson, he was already a legend in Scotland. Not just for beating Rangers and Celtic, but for doing the unthinkable. In 1983, with Aberdeen, a provincial Scottish club that had no business rubbing shoulders with Europe's elite, Ferguson led them to win the European Cup Winners' Cup, defeating the mighty Real Madrid in the final. Let that sink in. A club from the Scottish Northeast beating Los Blancos on the European stage. That achievement didn't just shock Europe, it demanded respect. And when Manchester United came calling in 1986, they weren't just hiring a manager. They were hiring a visionary, a disciplinarian, and a man who knew how to break dynasties. But what Ferguson walked into at Old Trafford was not a club ready for glory. It was chaos masked by history, inconsistent performances, outdated structures, and a losing culture embedded deep in the dressing room. The media circled, fans doubted, and the results gave them reason. For the first few years, the trophies didn't come. The football wasn't pretty. The pressure was suffocating. Rumors of the sack grew louder with every bad result. By 1989, it was so bad that Ferguson himself later admitted, if United had lost that FA Cup third-round tie against Nottingham Forest, he likely would have been sacked. But they didn't lose. United won. And that one became the hinge on which football history turned. Because from that moment on, everything changed. That narrow FA Cup win against Nottingham Forest in 1990 didn't just save Ferguson's job, it changed the course of football history. Because from that moment forward, Sir Alex Ferguson didn't just manage Manchester United, he built an empire. The trophies began to flow. First the FA Cup, then the Cup Winners' Cup in 1991, and finally, in 1993, the moment United fans had waited 26 long years for, the Premier League title. And from there, he never looked back. Under Ferguson, Manchester United didn't just win, they dominated. 13 Premier League titles, 5 FA Cups, 2 UEFA Champions League titles, a historic treble in 1999 that no English club had ever achieved. His teams evolved through the decades, from the class of Cantona, Keane, and Giggs, to the golden generation of Scholes, Beckham, and Neville, to the ruthless efficiency of Rooney, Ronaldo, and Van der Sar. And it wasn't just about talent, it was about mentality. United under Ferguson never gave up, never switched off. Fergie time wasn't a myth, it was a mindset. He built teams that feared no one, respected history, but never clung to it. Young players were trusted. Big egos were controlled. Standards were non-negotiable. Ferguson wasn't just a manager, he was the institution. While other clubs spent, United won. While others built teams, Ferguson built eras. From 1993 to 2013, Manchester United were the measuring stick, the club everyone else compared themselves to. His presence alone was worth points on the board. His stare silenced press rooms. His words inspired generations. And in May 2013, when he walked off the pitch for the last time, waving goodbye to a packed Old Trafford after lifting yet another Premier League trophy, a chapter closed. But what no one realized at the time was this. Ferguson wasn't just holding the club together. He was the club, and once he left, the cracks would no longer be hidden. They would become chasms. When Sir Alex Ferguson walked away in May 2013, Manchester United were champions. Again, it was his 13th Premier League title, his final masterpiece. He left behind a trophy cabinet overflowing, a squad full of champions, and a fan base basking in 2 decades of dominance. But what no one fully grasped at the time was just how much of Manchester United's identity had been held together by one man. And when he left, everything fell apart. Handpicked by Ferguson himself, David Moyes was meant to be the successor, the bridge between eras. But he inherited more than a job. He inherited a monster of a legacy. From day one, the pressure was unbearable. I remember getting on the plane on the way home and seeing David Moyes sprawled out on the chair, looked disheveled. "Big club this," that's what he said to me. And I thought, ugh. Results dropped. The aura vanished. Old Trafford no longer felt invincible. Moyes was given a 6-year contract, but he didn't last one. 7th place. No Champions League. No trophies. The chosen one became the forgotten one. Overwhelmed, under-equipped, and ruthlessly exposed. Then came Louis van Gaal, a tactical mastermind with a World Cup bronze medal and European pedigree. But his brand of football, slow, rigid, methodical, never connected with the United DNA. He brought structure, discipline. He gave debuts to Rashford and Lingard. He won the FA Cup, but creativity was stifled. Players looked lost. And despite silverware, the style was stale. The board pulled the plug just hours after lifting the trophy. Then came the special one. Jose Mourinho, the serial winner, the ruthless tactician, the man who said, "Finishing second with this squad was one of the greatest achievements of my career." He delivered trophies, the League Cup and the Europa League. He brought in Zlatan, Pogba, Matic. For a moment, United had bite again. But behind the scenes, it was chaos. Fallout with players. Passive-aggressive press conferences. A toxic atmosphere. By year 3, it had imploded. The football was defensive, the mood was dark, and United were once again chasing shadows. Mourinho was shown the door, and another era ended in bitterness. Enter Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the baby-faced assassin turned caretaker, turned permanent manager. A club legend with a smile and belief in the United way. At first, it worked. The mood lifted. The football flowed. That famous night in Paris, beating PSG with a depleted squad, made fans believe again. But belief isn't enough. Tactics lacked depth. The defense cracked. Big games slipped away. Despite reaching a Europa League final and finishing second in the league, Solskjaer's United never had a clear identity. And after a humiliating 5-0 defeat to Liverpool, the dream was over. The nostalgia wore off. United needed more than sentiment. What followed was a puzzle. Ralf Rangnick, the godfather of pressing football, brought in as an interim manager with a future consultant role. But what was promised as tactical revolution became tactical confusion. The players didn't buy in. The pressing never came. The results got worse. Rangnick's reign was short, awkward, and emblematic of United's bigger problem: no direction, no identity, no plan. Then came Ten Hag, the meticulous tactician who built Ajax into a European force. Finally, it seemed, a long-term project had begun. He made bold calls, benched Ronaldo, disciplined players, won the League Cup, reached the FA Cup final, finished top 4 in his first season. The standards returned. Briefly, but the second season was brutal. Injuries piled up. The midfield collapsed. The defense was a revolving door. And despite winning the FA Cup in 2024, the league form was dreadful. Rumors of a sacking loomed. Ten Hag brought structure, but structure without stability can only hold so long. The truth? He inherited more than a team. He inherited a decade of dysfunction. Since 2013, Manchester United have spent over £1 billion. Hired 6 managers. Changed philosophies, playing styles, and transfer strategies, again and again. But you can't buy identity. You can't outsource culture. Ferguson built United on discipline, youth, belief, and standards. What followed has been a carousel of short-term fixes and commercial interests. The empire didn't collapse overnight. It crumbled decision by decision, year by year. And now, the question is no longer, who can replace Ferguson? It's, can United ever rebuild what he left behind? After over a decade of false dawns and fading hope, Manchester United make yet another bold decision. They turn to Ruben Amorim, the young, dynamic tactician who once transformed Sporting Lisbon from underachievers into champions. Amorim arrives with a reputation for modern football, tactical flexibility, high pressing, and fearless youth development. But what he inherits at Old Trafford is no blank canvas. It's a mess, a fractured squad, a fragile mentality, and years of misdirection. His first months were anything but smooth. The performances were uneven. The press grew louder. The dressing room looked unconvinced. The weight of expectation returned, crushing, unforgiving. And then, after a frustrating draw, Amorim spoke, not with excuses, but with brutal clarity. He said the words that instantly cut through the noise. "We will suffer. This club has suffered for a long time. But to rebuild it, we have to suffer more before we rise again." It isn't spin. It isn't politics. It's truth. Amorim doesn't promise miracles. He demands patience, work, and pain. Because like his greatest role model, fellow Portuguese and former United manager Jose Mourinho, he believes that winning begins with suffering. He's spoken openly about the influence Mourinho has had on his career, not just tactically, but mentally. The resilience, the control, the presence. Amorim doesn't want to copy Mourinho, but he wants to build with that same unshakable conviction. And now, slowly, the project begins to take shape. United is backing Amorim in the transfer market. They signed Bryan Mbeumo, the explosive winger from Brentford, a relentless presser, a creative spark, a player made for Amorim's intensity. Then Matheus Cunha, dynamic, selfless, aggressive. The kind of forward who presses, links play, and bleeds for the badge. These aren't just signings. They're statements. United aren't chasing names. They're building a system, a philosophy, a team with purpose. And now, as Amorim enters his second season, with a preseason behind him, his own players on the pitch, and his identity slowly imprinting itself on the club, the question echoes louder than ever. Can Ruben Amorim be the man who finally brings Manchester United back to their best? Can he end the chaos, restore the standard, and spark a new era? Or will he be remembered as just another man who tried to fill the shoes of a legend? Enjoyed the story? Subscribe for more powerful football insights, tactical breakdowns, and untold club stories. Don't miss what's next.